Savage Dog by J.L. Wolff. The team jogged along the hard clay surface of a northern Kansas road as we approached a lone farmhouse. At the driveway, my horses turned in. They were thirsty. I unfastened their check reins, but suddenly they seemed to forget their thirst. They were highly nervous, afraid. I too sensed danger close at hand and quickly looked toward the barn. Every door was closed, not a sign of life. In each window of the house a faded curtain hung all the way down. It was eerie. I wanted to run. Then I saw it. A tremendous dog of mastiff breed stood just inside the house gate, straining powerfully against a heavy chain, trying to reach the intruder. Bloodshot eyes fixed upon mine, wanting to kill. For several moments I looked at this ferocious specimen, whose shoulders stood better than 3 feet high. The chain seemed secure. Slowly, I walked toward him, talking all the while in a low tone. He neither barked nor growled. He merely stood straining every muscle of his mighty body to snap the leash. Approaching the gate and this aspiration of frozen hate, a chill tingled down my spine. Still talking, I opened the latch and very slowly walked toward this formidable guardian. Not by the faintest quiver did he show any movement except with his burning red eyes that followed mine. I talked about the weather, the size of his doghouse, the weight of his chain, the terrific strain against his collar, and I was exceedingly careful to size up the strength of his collar before gradually, inch by inch, settling down on my haunches with my head but 2 feet from his. 10 minutes must have passed. Never for an instant did I stop talking. I began to wonder if this huge beast was utterly devoid of friendliness. Minute followed minute. Almost imperceivably, the chain started to slacken. On and on I talked. It's a shame to be left alone on this Kansas prairie, where the nearest house is miles away. It must be lonesome to be a savage dog of whom everyone is afraid, to have them all walk in wide circles around you, to have no one say a kind word to such a magnificent animal as you are. Your heart, if it is in proportion to your body, it must be gigantic. How long has it been since any man or child has played with you, or stroked your fur, or tickled behind your ears? As I continued to sympathize with him, he gradually relaxed, loosening his chain. Our eyes never parted. Neither of us moved until carefully I lifted my hand and reached gradually towards his nose. A foot, 8 inches, 5, 2, barely 1 inch. Not by the slightest twitch of his nostrils did he show any interest. Why don't you want to smell my hand? Don't you want to be my friend? My arm began to ache, and I feared my overtures were doomed to failure. And then his head moved slightly toward my fingers as he gently strained against his chain, tried to reach them. Softly I stroked the side of his nostril. Now he was looking at me, only with a questioning gaze, all viciousness gone. Farther and farther back along the side of his face my fingers scratched until his jaws could have easily crushed my wrist. My legs were falling asleep, so patting his head I arose cautiously. The great animal swung his rear quarters over toward me, and I scratched his shoulders. For a long time we stood, while I kept my head and my voice low in conversation. My fingers never rested. I was ready, of course, instantly to jump well out of reach. Ever so imperceivably I edged closer until his shoulders rested against my side. All thoughts of danger disappeared, and I was filled with compassion for this magnificent creature. He never looked up. His tail never wagged. He was content to lean against me, to be stroked, to hear my sympathetic voice. But this could not go on. There were miles ahead of us, and the afternoon was getting late. Yet I hated to leave him after friendship so laboriously gained, and his final surrender to the delight of my fingertips was complete. As I moved away, he looked up in wonder, and when I reached for the latch, he whined, just a little, and looked at me pleadingly. I couldn't run out on him this way. Quickly I returned and without hesitation dropped to my knees and put my arms around his neck. I rubbed his nose against my cheek, and we no longer talked, merely stroked and patted his neck and shoulders. It almost broke my heart when once more I started for the gate, this time going through resolutely, not even turning back to look. I got into the buggy and swung the horses around, and as I drove past, he was whining. I couldn't leave him. Again I jumped down and ran back. His immense tail slowly moved from side to side as eagerly as he put his head against me and looked into my eyes. It was unbearable to think of his loneliness, the utter loneliness that belongs to a savage dog, scolded and cursed, whose longing for a friendly gesture no one can guess. In his deep brown eyes, looking understandingly into my own, I saw a newborn loyalty, steadfast and eternal. Tears streamed down my cheek as I left him, straining to follow me, his whines cut short by the collar that was choking him. As my horse clogged down the road, he howled. Many years have passed. I can't even remember the town, but every detail of the friendship forged that afternoon is seared deep into my memory. This is the story I read, and this memory has been seared deep into my soul.